सर्वजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So we begin a new text today. It is called Atma Bodh. Before we go into the text, we have studied Bhaj Govindam, Sadhana Panchakam, Tattva Bodh, Hanuman Chalisa. 4 texts, right? Yeah. So, what is our transformation? How have these 4 texts transformed us? You can say either text-wise or you can say in general also. Otherwise, we will keep studying text after text. What is our main transformation?
I think specifically in Tattva Bodh, when we realize how big the universe is and the way you explained that there are 3 layers and then multiple layers, it just makes us feel that, our day-to-day issues are not as big as they seem to us, especially at that point of time. So the approach to the issues have become calmer for me, and because I think I'm approaching them more calmly, it is helping me to resolve them better. This is more at work, at family, everywhere, basically.
And also, like you said, you attach yourself to the higher things, so you drop, you move on, you let it pass, you let it go. And that's really what makes us go through every day or every little bit of struggle that one has. So-called.
I think basically what you said also about the thought and the action and the words being one is a very difficult thing to do. But if you just keep it in mind all the time, you try to do that, and then you put higher values for yourself instead of like how you said that only this much I'm doing, only this much is okay, this much is this. So all the time compromising instead of saying that no, this is the higher value and to take that. Just to put the 3 together and focusing on what is good actually.
Yeah, this even chanting Hanuman Chalisa I feel has made a big difference to me. And also I feel like your thoughts, your intentions, your purity of heart, you start thinking good for others, don't have negative emotions. That's a huge transformation. And negativity does not bother you because it cannot now. How anyone negative thinks of you, it cannot bother you anymore. So you deal with life a lot easier and people a lot easier. Small things just you don't attach. Even someone comes and screams at you, you won't even react to them because you can deal with things a lot better.
Actually, start feeling sorry for them. It's actually not nice.
Because people sometimes really behave very petty, Extremely petty.
First, she used to get angry and want to move on, and also feeling sorry is a big step up.
The concept of Brahman which you said, and once after the class, you told me one statement, you were also there, that I already know you're Brahman. So why should I get upset at you? I have not reached that stage, I don't get completely upset at people. But I realize that he's also Brahman, she's also Brahman, anybody who upsets. On the road also, that road rage. Part of the same, part of the whole, let him be. He's facing his issues, or she is facing her issues. That has been
You also tend to see the bigger picture. You're not thinking of just I, me, my world. Expanded.
Regarding negativity, I feel that it's an involuntary emotion. Even if you say, I don't want to be negative, yet those thoughts do come into your mind and they rush into your head faster than the positivity, But at the same time, I feel all the time, every moment of your life, you have to deal with it. You have to just carry on dealing with whatever comes your way, be it negative or whatever.
I think for me, it's I'm trying my best to sort of dedicate all actions, to the higher authority, and that is just helping me fulfill my, or cope with my responsibilities without really getting perturbed, which I used to get more perturbed earlier. But of course, not that I'm very calm right now, but it's just, I think, helped me.
Okay, so why are we doing all these things in the sense of
not holding on to things or trying to integrate the BMI or, allowing, in spite of things in the mind, letting, facing whatever life brings or being quieter or turning inwards. Why? For what reason are we doing all this? To realize ourselves, for our own happiness. That is first and most important transformation happens if I get the identity I am a seeker and my goal of life in and through what I am doing right now is to realize the self or happiness or moksha or God or whatever name you give. The fundamental identity shift should happen. That I am a seeker, I am playing all these roles. Whatever they may be. Father, mother, friend, employer, any role. Those are roles I am playing. I am essentially a seeker on the journey to realize my own true self. Then everything will fall into place because these are all the means to get to that state. Otherwise, what will happen? My identity shift would not have happened. I will try to make that role better. Now I'm a better mother, I'm a better son, I'm a better friend, I'm a better employer or whatever it is. My life is much better than before. So that change is a very limited change. It's like using a diamond for paperweight. I'm still using, but that's not the use of a diamond. In the same way, when we come to Vedanta, the main purpose of Vedanta is to make me realize what? That I am Brahman. The roles that I am thinking I am, they are the reality today. What is the reality as such? That I don't know. As I study the scriptures, I come to understand that these are only the roles. My identity is Brahman, and right now I am thinking of myself as this individual. But I have forgotten what is my true nature. So, through the study of the scriptures, if my identity shifts, saying that these are roles, I am a seeker and I have to realize Brahman. If I serve here selflessly, if I dilute my likes and dislikes here, if I develop devotion, then I will realize that supreme state. That is very, very important. Because many times what happens in life is, we go through different books. After some time, book after book, as one goes through, what happens to us? It becomes a routine. That I finished this, now I know this also. So it becomes one more subject that I know in detail. Like I know physics, chemistry, biology or whatever else in the world outside. I know Vedanta also, and in Vedanta I know this many books. But did my identity shift? Did moksha become my goal? Not at the fag end of life. Right now, in and through whatever I am doing. If that happens, then that means I am right on track, and the books which I am studying are leading me to that. So that is one important aspect here. So this word Atma Bodh means that. Atma means self, I. Literally the word Atma is I. And Bodh means knowledge. So Tattva Bodh knowledge of the essence. Atmabodh, knowledge of the self. So just like Tattvabodh is a Prakarana Grantha, it is a fundamental text in Vedanta, Atmabodh also is a fundamental text. And some of the concepts you will find similar in both. But the difference here is, Tattvabodh goes more technically to define terms and terminologies. Atmabodh doesn't define terms and terminologies in that way, but Atmabodh deals with fundamental concepts of Vedanta through the style of analogies. Each shloka will be one analogy. And beautiful analogies taken from nature. So because they are taken from nature, they are timeless. And also day-to-day analogies these are. So as I see these in my daily life, it will strike. Like one example comes is of fire and cooking. The second shloka it will come. So that is a day-to-day thing that I am dealing with. So when I engage in that, my mind should go to that aspect of Vedanta which it conveys. So Shankaracharya ji is the author of this, just like he wrote Tattvabodh. So Tattvabodh, then Atmabodh. So what he explained in Tattvabodh, little more elaborated in Atmabodh through analogies. And the same thing is elaborated much widely in Vivek Chudamani. Vivek Chudamani has 581 verses. The same concepts. Now imagine all the three are foundation texts in Vedanta. Prakarana Granthas they are called. And they deal with these fundamental concepts so that we become clearer. And when we study the Gita, the Upanishads, etc., then it makes very clear sense that what are they trying to tell us. Because then we are very clear with terms and terminologies and the concepts. So Atmabodh is that it will tell us about this Atma, and through different analogies, different concepts that we need to understand in Vedanta. Now, why do I need to know the Atma? My life is going on happily. Why should I know Atma? And why should I know now? Can't life just carry on? I understand a few things about how to deal with relationships, how to be equanimous, how to increase efficiency. Once those things I learn, my life will become much better. Why should I know the Atma? Everlasting joy. That is our deepest demand, that I want to be happy at all times. That cannot come from anything in the world outside. So that is one aspect, that my deepest demand can be met only when I know that which is everlasting. That which is everlasting is infinite, which is the Atma. Okay, anything else? Right, so right now my identification is false with that which is perishing, which is temporary. But my true self is the Atma, which I don't know. And identified with the perishing and the changing, there will definitely be misery. So what I am trying to do right now is identify with the perishing and seek permanent happiness through that, which is very illogical. What is perishing cannot give permanent happiness. It will perish, it is gone. But I am chasing that. And the sorrow which is coming from that, I am not realizing is not because of that. It is because of my wrong perception. Hence, when we know the Atma, the perception only changes completely. I think of myself as a limited entity, and because I am a limited entity, whatever I experience, identifying with this limited, will be cause of sorrow only. So to fulfill the very purpose of human life is to know who am I. And to know who am I, first I should at least know what I am not. And how this false identification is. See, very few people arrive at this by themselves, by their own thinking and reflection, and then they feel emptiness, they feel loneliness, they feel there is something wrong in the approach in which I am dealing with life. And they introspect, they think about it, and some satsang comes into their life which makes them turn inside and then realize. Otherwise, it is very difficult. How will we know that there is some Atma? We won't know. Generally, we take it for granted, I am this, Mr. So and so. And now I am this, Mr. So and so. So, whatever this entity is going through is real because the world is real to me. Till one gets some satsang or one has that kind of a grace of the Lord that one is able to think by oneself, one doesn't even know that actually what one is doing the whole life is in living the whole life in ignorance. Not knowing who am I and taking it for granted that I am Mr. So and so. Now the purpose of life is what? That this Mr. So and so must live a happy, comfortable life, for which there are so many adjustments to be made. Then I will get a certain little pleasure or little happiness. So the whole purpose of life becomes that what I want must happen. And in that there is big struggle. So the ignorance and what I am not, I am identifying with that is causing me the pain, that is not known only. So those who feel that yes, I am bound by this individuality, this limited Mr. So and so is the cause of bondage, they will want to know who I am, that because I am not this. So that feeling when it comes, then that intensity of seeking becomes much, much more. That I am living whole life not knowing only who I am. In the world, what will we call such a person who does not know himself or herself properly? What is that such a person called?
Retarded.
Exactly. Mentally retarded, no? Mad person who has forgotten himself and now is behaving very weird because he doesn't know who is he. Suppose a big billionaire it is, and then that person has forgotten he's a billionaire, now goes on begging. What will one say? He's lost the mental balance. But the strange thing is, in the world, everybody has lost the mental balance and they have called that as the normal thing. The man who is realized, who has woken up, he is calling it out, saying, Arey Baba, wake up, you are not this. We get together and say, this man is mad. Who is mad actually? One who doesn't know himself has lost the plot. All the people, such people have come together. It's like all the madmen in the hospital come together and decide that the doctor is a mad guy. It is like that which has happened. That's why somebody said that one who knows others is wise, but one who knows oneself is enlightened. That, do I know who am I? I should know who am I. Half the problems in life will just disappear. We don't have to solve them also. If I think a problem is real, then I have to solve. Like the classic example in Vedanta is, if I see the rope as a snake, now I think the snake is real. Now the snake has bit me. Now the poison is going all over the body. Now I am going to die. Now the mind imagines so many things, and because the mind imagines it, it is very real to the mind. And some people will even get reactions. They will start shivering, they will fall down, the froth will start coming out, all because their mind has imagined it. Now the problem is real, now I have to find a solution. But if actually somebody puts a torch and shows to that person, there is no snake there. Does he have to solve any problem? There is nothing to solve. Why? Because the problem itself was fictitious. This I, Mr. So and so entity, I am right now thinking it is real. Now because this I is real, small I, all the problems of this small I also are real. So I have anger, greed, jealousy, passion, all these individually. Then there are problems with people. People are not listening to me, people are not following, they are hurting me, they are gossiping behind me. All those things. Then problem with situations. So many problems. Now, I have two choices. Either I can try to fight with life and these problems and try to overcome one solution, Or I can question the very root cause, saying ki, what is the root cause of this problem and is there really a problem? This philosopher, no, Jean-Paul Sartre, what did he say? You don't have a problem, you are the problem. You are the problem meaning, both levels one can understand that. I as an individual also am a problem many times. Or I thinking of myself as this I, that is a problem. I am not this small I at all. So if I start inquiring into this, that who am I really speaking, I come to realize that till now I am thinking I am this Mr. So and so, and because this is real to me, everything else is real, whatever this is going through. Like the dream character, whatever the dream character goes through in the dream world is very real. But the moment one wakes up, does one have to solve the problems of the dream? No, nothing has to be done. So the moment one woke up and realized, that entity only was wrong. There was no entity like that. I just thought it is very real. That's the book telling you. Atma Bodh is meant for that. Who am I meaning? I am the Atma, the self. Pure consciousness, what we learned in Tattva Bodh, no? Sat, Chit, Anand. That is my true nature. Those are also words, what they indicate, that state, that is my true nature, the state as infinite reality. From the state of infinity, one has come to one individual. And the strange part is, it is not paining also. If we wear a shoe which is one size less, it will pain or not? I want to get out of it immediately. One size shoe less if I wear. But from the state of infinity, I am identifying with only one body, mind, intellect. And the strange part is, it doesn't pain at all. That, how come I am this? So this ignorance, when is there? So that's why I said two options I have. Either I find relief to all the problems of life, or I go to the cure part. That inquire into what is the root cause and eliminate. The root cause is, I just don't know who am I. Ignorance is the root cause. And so the solution for this ignorance can be what? Only knowledge. Self-knowledge, not verbal knowledge. Verbal knowledge is a means. Suppose we say, I am Satchidanand. Those are words. But what do those words indicate? That state, when I come to intuitively realize that state, that is the knowledge which we are talking. It's an intuitive understanding of my true nature, self, which is experiential, which is not a theory. Because it's my nature, how can it not be experiential? So that knowledge is this, Atma Bodh. Bodh means the knowledge of the self, which will help us to not only wake up to the reality of my true nature, but at the same time, all these sorrows, miseries, everything that one is going through will just disappear. One lives every moment then in the fullness of one's true nature. Imagine what a life that is. Life as this small I, constant struggle, no matter how much we achieve, constant sense of emptiness and loneliness. And the other side is the life of illumination, the life of fullness, the life of completeness. No sense of emptiness, no sense of loneliness, a complete sense of fulfillment. That's a choice. And hence, why should I know this self? Because without knowing myself, that ignorance is the root cause of my sorrow. 2, because I don't know who am I, all the other problems, they become real and they overwhelm me. 3, no matter how much I achieve in the world, I still remain empty only. Still I feel finite. 4, fear and sorrow doesn't go. How much ever I achieve in the world, till I don't realize my imperishable nature, fear will not go. Somewhere or the other I will be scared. Each one may have different sources of fear, different causes of fear, but fear will be there. Fear of losing, fear of pain, fear of rejection, fear of failure, many things, all different types of fears. So fear and sorrow doesn't go. When I realize the self, all gone. So when we see the lives of such masters like Shankaracharya ji or all the great masters, that how have they lived their life? What difference did this knowledge make to their life? How their perception about themselves completely changed. And because that perception has gone, that I am this small little entity, the way in which they live their life, what they achieve in their life, how they influence the people, everything changes. 1200 years after Shankaracharya ji is gone, we are still reading his book. Which other author's book we read after 1200 years? Vedas, etc. Timeless. Buddha went before that also. Still Buddhist books we are reading today. Christ was before. Still. So if you see these great masters, when they have realized themselves, the most satisfying aspect is to know the self. And how they impact the whole how do they impact the whole world also? That generations and generations, millenniums after they have gone also will continue to derive inspiration. That is called a legacy. The legacy of these great masters and the self-knowledge that they have left, it is because of that that we have some method by which we can follow those and we are able to realize the truth. Otherwise, one will be lost. How many generations are reading this knowledge? They have preserved this knowledge, passing it on to the next generation. Otherwise, before, if Vedanta is not there, these great masters are not there, how would life be? We will be born as limited creatures, live a difficult life of struggle, die as limited creatures only. Again be born. So this cycle just doesn't end. That is another reason why self-knowledge is required, that only through self-knowledge the cycle of birth and death can end. There is no other way to end the cycle of birth and death. Because as long as I feel limited, I will have desires. To fulfill desires, I will take bodies. So it will go on. Endless cycle of birth and death. That's why in Guru Stotramrita said, Aneka janma samprapta karma bandha vidahine atma jnana pradhanena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Aneka janma samprapta. Through many lives, we have collected lots of karmas. Karma bandha. Vidahine, one who destroys them, burns them. How? Atma jnana pradhanena. By giving the knowledge of the self. And once I get the knowledge of the self, I am fulfilled. When we say I am fulfilled, there is no small I who is fulfilled. The small I has dissolved. So this is the crux of spiritual life. To dissolve this ego, to wake up to the self. And they are the two sides of the same coin. Holding on to the ego, I cannot realize the self. This is the challenge. That I have to let go of the ego while walking the spiritual path. Let go of the ego while walking the spiritual path means what? Also let go of whatever strengthens this ego. Otherwise that ego will remain strong, intact as it is. I may say how much ever I am Brahman, I can meditate, I can, study books and quote and do the chanting and many things I can do. But the ego is solid and strong. Why? Because likes and dislikes are not neutralized. Attachments and aversions are intact. Control of the senses is not there. But I am a student of Vedanta. I have studied many books. I won't reach anywhere.
I'm just saying, like when you look at nature and everything, so we see that if human beings were eliminated
fantastic. Everything would change. We don't have to preserve the environment at all.
So that's what I'm saying. So we are like the most actually what
Human being was created for self-realization because no other creature has that capability. That's the beauty of human life. But not knowing that, we have destroyed ourselves, we are destroying others also. Exactly. We are supposed to be more evolved. But we are not living.
So where will it go?
Greed.
And it's all over. It's not like
Yeah, everywhere. All over the world, it is human beings' greed. And greed.
that is why these books were written, because obviously from that time all this has
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
it's a recent thing.
Yeah, it's a human tendency throughout history.
Yeah, so then
But today it is becoming more and more. Downfall is rapid now. Just you see the downfall in the last 200 years is much more than what was before. Even in terms of environment. I told you the other day. In 42 years, we have destroyed 50% of the world's forests, which is in 1 minute of Earth's existence. If 4.2 billion years is the Earth's existence, in that last 42 years is only 1 minute of Earth's existence. In that we have destroyed 50% of the world's forest. You must have seen the pictures of the Chhat Puja. Have you seen? In Yamuna, people were doing the Chhat Puja, standing in the water, praying to the sun. That's an ancient ritual. That Yamuna, no, just now, last week.
The foam,
Look at the foam. That Yamuna which we worship, what is that Yamuna state today? It's pathetic. All industrial pollutants are all dumped into it. Same reason with Ganga also. Industrialization has progressed us or regressed us? That's a big question. In 200 years, how we have destroyed this earth and we are continuing to destroy.
they say agriculture actually was the worst invention ever, because from that everything started.
Without agriculture, how this will happen?
No, but that's only for us, no? Only for human beings you need, no? You need agriculture for who else? Nobody else.
No, even for cows and not for
No,
water.
but cows
They
are
need
enough to
agriculture.
save on their own. They don't need your agriculture. They don't need.
So the point is, human being has freedom. That freedom, how to utilize, one doesn't know. One is destroyed because of that lack of proper knowledge, lack of proper prioritization, and finally, if we go deep into it, it will be the body identification only now that we will come to. That I think I am this, and the pleasure of this body is my pleasure. So, do anything to the world, but keep this happy. Generations after generations, one keeps doing that. See, the animal doesn't even know this. That it identifies with its body by instinct. We identify it out of self-awareness. So we have a choice not to identify. Which is why Vedanta comes into play. That really at the deepest level, if we want to bring transformation in our life as well as in the society outside, knowledge of Vedanta has to be brought into the lives of people, and the life has to be tuned according to that. Which is why I was saying that if I don't practice these things which fatten the ego, if I don't eliminate those aspects, then Vedanta is just one intellectual gymnastics. Then I may say that yes, I know Mahavakyas, I know 4 Mahavakyas, and do you know what is Tattvamasi? I know what is Tattvamasi. Aham Brahmasmi, do you know? I can tell you what is Aham Brahmasmi, which Veda, which Upanishad, what is the deeper meaning, Vachyartha, Lakshyartha, go on. But who are you? I am Mr. So-and-so.
But Swamiji, in this vast universe, even our own city is just a speck. So we, the billion people here in this city, are 1 billionth of a speck. Actually. We are actually nothing.
As an individual, so we are nothing, actually speaking. Compared to the whole universe, Earth itself is a speck. Forget us. It is mighty cosmos. Earth itself will be some speck somewhere Forget in the universe. In the Milky Way galaxy only our solar system will be one speck.
But that is only the gross level.
No, that's why.
We are identifying the gross level.
Correct, but identification of the gross level is required because right now I am identifying at this level.
That is what we are trying to get rid of.
No, the body level we are identifying, which we have to get rid of, just to make me understand the insignificance of this body, we compare at the gross level, which is the whole universe. Then if we go to the mind level, the intellect level, and then the self level, then so definitely there is no existence of this body or in the jiva at all. But many people don't understand that totality because as it becomes more subtler, one is not ready to understand that. Satchidanand, if we go and say to anybody,
We now bother ourselves with these comparisons, having known that there are different levels and
we need to bother
we now
only.
keep comparing.
No, we need to bother only to the extent that it helps me to drop the ego. When vanity comes to my mind saying, I want this type of food only, then one should come to that level to say that, what are you asking for this? How much one ill-treats people, exploits people just at the level of the body, think. How many people have been killed also just by exploitation at the body level? Caste, community, color, gender, is all related to the body level. So I may know that I am the self, but if my level of behavior is still at the body level, then I need to compare to ensure that my ego doesn't flare up. If I am not operating that much at the body level, then no need. Then lift higher and higher and identify with that highest only. Yeah, but it is a process. What many people do is they will keep saying, I am Brahman, but at the body level, all attachments remain as it is. If you don't give them their morning coffee, finish, that whole day will go miserable. But I am Brahman. Then you have to tell them at that level, who are you in this whole universe to throw a fit? What is your existence? Nothing. Because the identification is at the body level. If identification is not at that level, then no need to even bring that analogy. So it depends on which level I am. Like Arjun had to be shown Vishwarup. For him to understand, oh Bapre, this is the Lord and this is the totality and already everything is predetermined in that. So he had to be shown that big picture for his ego to drop. And in that Bhagavan tells him that I have already killed them and you look at these Kauravas and he sees, like we eat some chips and all that, like that the Kauravas were entering the mouth of the Lord and they were getting squashed. He literally saw that, Kyore Bapre, all they already killed. The entire war, everything he saw there, past, present, future, not only of the war, this whole creations and multiple creations, everything is seen in one place. Then suddenly he becomes humbled. That what ego am I having? That I will not fight this war, I will not do this duty, I will go away into the forest. He suddenly got humbled because he saw. Because his identification is still at the body level because he's saying, this is my grandfather, this is my teacher. So Bhagavan told him all those things that, Arey, you are Brahman, they are imperishable, you are imperishable, all that he told. But then he understood that Arjun needs one proper glimpse into the Absolute. Showed him Vishwarup. So that's how it is. So we have to see at which level we are. So now this Atmabodh, with this background, if we go into the study of Atmabodh, then our intensity of seeking will become more stronger, that I am a seeker, I am on the path to know who am I. In my daily life, whatever I am doing, will this lead me closer to the knowledge of the self or will this take me away from the knowledge of the self? One. Will this lead me to alignment of body, mind, intellect or take me away from the body, mind, intellect alignment? If these 2 points I keep in mind and then face various aspects of my life, then my seeking will become from a spark, it will become like a huge fire which will destroy the ignorance. Otherwise, ignorance will thrive, we will continue to be bound and our own intellect will take us for a ride happily, and we may be under the illusion that I am spiritually progressing. There's a big difference between actual progress and illusion of progress. How do I know what is actual progress? If I am going to a, what is it called? Suppose some destination I am going, Pune. How do I know I am reaching closer to Pune? You can see, and you will see milestones, no? So if you, let us say you are jog to Pune, go. You will see on the road, no? But if you are jogging on a treadmill, you are still jogging. But will you reach Pune? But I am still jogging, no? Same thing. There are people who are on the spiritual path jogging and staying in the same place. No, I am telling you, it is not a joke. How the mind actually plays tricks with us, na? Exactly. So how do we measure? That is the question. Na? That how do we measure that I am actually jogging or am I running towards Pune? Where am I? The first verse of Atmabodh gives 3 pointers. Very beautiful that is. That if these 3 are happening, that means I am moving towards the goal, and Atmabodh will be beneficial for such people. So let's see, first verse. What is the page number in your book? 7, right. Tapobhikshina papanam. Repeat. First shloka. Oh, that Pratasmarami is the one before that. That's just a general meditation verse. 9. Tapobhikshina papanam Shantanam vitaraginam Mumukshunam apekshoyam Atmabodho vidhiyate. So first word is so beautiful. Tapobhihi, by doing tapas. Tapas is the means. If I am wanting self-knowledge, I have to live a life of tapas. When I live a life of tapas, what will happen? These 3 things have to happen. Kshina papanam, agitations of the mind must reduce. Shantanam, the senses and the body must be controlled and quietened. And vitaraginam, there must be dispassion in the intellect. If I am increasing in my peace, if I am increasing in my sense control, if I am increasing in my dispassion, that means I am really moving towards my destination. Because if these 3 happen, then I am a mumukshu. The intensity to seek the self will be very high. I want freedom. That deep quest will be very, very strong. Not some vague idea that I also want freedom, plus money, plus this, plus that, and freedom. No. I want freedom. So I will look at myself as a mumukshu, intense seeker of realization. So he says, for such a person, mumukshunam apekshoyam. For such a person, the benefit of such a person, atmabodho vidhiyate. Atmabodh is being elaborated. Now this first verse is actually like an invocation verse. So in every class of ours, till we complete the text of Atmabodh, every class we will chant the first verse. Yeah. Kshina papanam means agitations have to reduce. I will come anyway, deep meaning I will come. Tapobhi means by tapasya, not meditation only. Penance. Literally means austerity, penance. So living a life of austerity, what it is we will see in detail, but general basic meaning right now. By living the life of austerity, when the agitations of the mind have reduced, kshina papana. Then shantanam, body and the senses have become quietened. Otherwise, right now senses are wild. Each sense wants something or the other and there's craving. And vitaraginam, the intellect has dispassion. These three, when by tapas, when a person gets these three, then one becomes a mumukshu. That I want liberation alone. In this context, what is liberation? The knowledge of who am I. Liberation is liberation from ignorance, not running away from work, running away from world duties. No. Liberation means I want to be free from this false notion that I am this jiva and I want to know who am I. That ignorance, no, it is, I want to be free from that ignorance, the root cause of my sorrow. So, mumukshunam, for such a person, benefit, apekshoyam, atmabodha is described. So, this verse makes four things very clear, which we call as anubandha chatushtaya. If you remember in Tattvabodha also we did that. What is anubandha chatushtaya? That who is the adhikari of this book? Adhikari means who is a qualified student. That who will benefit from this book by study of this book. So, the word mumukshu means the adhikari. See, every book, now there are all the different types of books. Now, romance is one section, then action is one section. Like that, there will be all different categories. Like that, who will benefit? Person who really wants liberation. When that person reads this, it is the benefit of that person. So that in the beginning itself, I should know if I am not a mumukshu, then close the book, put it aside because it will not make any sense. So one is Atma Bodh is for that. No.
You're ignorant. You said you're ignorant.
Correct. But the point is, mumukshu by default is a different question. That mumukshu is not by default. I am seeking the supreme happiness by default, that is clear. But when a person knows consciously that what I am seeking outside is not the right direction, I have to turn within and liberate myself from this false notion that I am the BMI, that person is a proper conscious seeker, mumukshu.
How does that person realize until he reads or...
Exactly, that's why we said either very few people will come to it by their own thinking,
Right.
or come through some satsang. God's grace and some punya of that person has come to satsang. Then only that person comes to know. Otherwise it's very difficult. How to know? Majority of our life we have come from animal realm, so we are still living extroverted life only. Slowly by march of evolution, some punya karma which I have done, grace of the Lord, then satsang comes into my life. And then I become aware. Then my seeking becomes conscious. Till then I am seeking unconsciously in a wrong direction, not getting what I want, becoming frustrated. All that is also a part of the journey in the big picture. But in this context, when we say mumukshu, it means a seeker who is seeking consciously in the right place. Both are important. So knowing what I really want is permanent happiness. Then seeking in the right place. Where do I get it? Inside. And how do I get it? Not by any amount of action, but by integrating the BMI and transcending the BMI. That's the method to get it. So Atmabodh is meant to do that. That integrate body, mind, intellect, and then drop the notion that I am the body, mind, intellect. Till I don't integrate the body, mind, intellect, I cannot drop the attachment to BMI. My body, mind, intellect will keep me trapped in it only. Hence, yoga means that to unite the body, mind, and intellect. And then with such a integrated personality, when I meditate, I am pure consciousness, I am not the BMI. That person actually drops attachment, realizes the self, is free. So the path is only that much. What is it? Align, what we call earlier, we said PUT, put. Purify the mind, unify the mind, transcend the mind. The whole path is only that much. Purify, unify, transcend. That's it. But the journey is long because this purify, unify takes long time. Which is the same thing just now what we spoke. Purify the mind is kshina papanam. Unify the mind, purify the mind, all this. Kshina papanam, shantanam, vitaraginam, they are symbolizing purify and unify the mind. And Atma Bodh symbolizes transcend the mind. So the path is that much only. But on the way it takes so much time because we have developed lots and lots of attachments which are binding us down. It is like a bird which wants to fly. Inherent nature of the bird is to fly, but this bird is now tied down by so many ropes. Now each of these ropes have to be cut. Then only the bird can fly. So it is like that. So many likes, dislikes, attachments, aversion, prejudices, all that is binding us down.
Maybe the bird also does not want to fly that aggressively. He wants to be enjoying all that.
Exactly, enjoying all that. That's why that whole thing it is na ki I may study Vedanta, but I may still enjoy happily everything in the world. And I may justify it saying, after all, this is the age, I have to do it. After that, when I rise above it, then we will see.
There's nothing wrong in that. To experience it only, then you know you want to do that, right?
If you want to go through it with that attitude that I have to give it up, number one, so that is one's choice. But it depends also on the intensity of the seeking. If I know it is muck, and I still say I want to go through it to rise above the muck, okay. Or I can say it is muck, I am just going to jump over it. Both the attitudes I have. No, Swamiji, that choice we don't have right now. We are already inside the muck. Okay. The sad thing is that one doesn't want to come out. We are enjoying the muck. What to do?
Swamiji, Raja Janak was known as a very big seeker.
Are Baba, Raja Janaka dispassion we should remember.
But he wore everything, he wore his crown.
Yeah, exactly.
He lived in a palace, but he was dispassionate.
Yeah, how he lived before that. Before he got self-knowledge, how he lived, that we should know, no? He lived with such level of dispassion that his mind will not be shaken by any pleasure in the world. Entire Mithila is burning, but his mind will still be single-pointed, listening to his Guru Ashtavakra Muni. That level of sense control he had. What happens to us is, we keep on giving the example of Janak Maharaj, but we are nowhere close to Janak Maharaj. We are happy.
We are there. I'm just saying that he was a person who was a spiritual seeker. But all the worldly things, I mean, he...
Because he realized the absolute.
But he was dispassionate about it, and that is why he is known as a seeker.
No, he is known as the realized man. After he is a realized person, nothing in the world affects him, because one who has gone beyond all attachment to the body, mind, intellect, wherever that person is, will make no difference to that person. If Janak Maharaj would have become a beggar, he would not have had any qualms about it. Because no attachment to the body, mind, intellect at all. And that's how he reached there.
Even his daughter Sita was living in the jungle and he was okay about it. Otherwise, such a big king would say, "No, you come back with your children." And
Correct.
it was a decision that he wanted to stay over there in the jungle with the Guru. He was okay about it.
See, the point is that only that after realization, there is no problem. But before realization, I have to live the life of tapas. Because before realization, if I don't live in tapas, I am already bound by my own likes and dislikes. I am already attached to so many comforts and conveniences that my mind is enslaved by all these. And I may keep justifying myself saying, no, this is needed, this is needed, this is needed. Where is the difference, where is the line of a necessity and an indulgence? For a spiritual seeker, that line keeps on reducing. Which is why I am saying one has gone through certain things in life and then one has seen and then one wants to reduce, theek hai. But as one becomes more and more aware that this is a trap, one will not get into new ones. To prevent all the turmoil, unnecessary I am going through so many things. Anyway, I have to drop it. Why am I going through it? When already it is that certain things I have already gone through. Now what else is left in life to go through actually? Different types of sense enjoyments one would have gone through, relationships one would have gone through, name, fame, progeny, prosperity, gone through. Now really the question is, what is left for me to go through in life which will make me want more of this samsara? That's a question that one should ask. If there is something, then I should identify this I still need to go through. How quickly can I go through?
But that's not the thing, is we want more of what we have, that is indefinite.
So then that also I should accept. I want more of the same thing and my craving is more for that and not for this. Then if I come to face that, then I have to tell the mind by proper reflection and persuasion that, wow, how much will you get this? That is called Pratipaksha Bhavana, what we learned in Bhari Govindam. If the craving for the same thing is more and more and more, then the pain of that the mind has to be reminded again and again. Boss, how much will you indulge in this? What have you actually got out of this? See the painful side also. Then maybe the craving for it will reduce. So I can live in tapas, I can live in Pratipaksha Bhavana and slowly reduce the craving for sense pleasures, enjoyments, and do these three things. So more of this we will take up. In our next class we will take up.
That's why in the olden days they used to say, after the age of 55, there is sannyas. So you.
No, not sannyas. Sannyas is 75. After 50 you start withdrawing, vanaprastha. They give 25 years to withdraw. And then at 75 take sannyas.
At 75, not 55.
You can take sannyas very before also, but 75 is the official age. Start withdrawing. Not everything, start withdrawing thoda. 50. 50 is because the lifespan now is under 100.
It's so difficult to accept what you are saying right now in this crowd. Most of us are 50 or close to 50.
Now, so when you say this, the 50s are the new 20s and all.
That's what I'm saying. The world will tell you always like that. 50 is the new 20, 70 is the new 30. They will keep you bound only.
You don't want to only
Consumerism is like that, na? They will keep on wanting to produce muck and enjoying the muck.
see like that's something.
I am not standing or judging anybody. I am including myself also that how our mind works. No? Our mind still wants all kinds of things. If you go to not to say anything specific like that, but even if we go for a yatra, first we will figure out which hotel, what food, which tourist company, what kind of cuisine that fellow gives. Then if all that is conducive, then I will go for a yatra. Arey bhai, yatra is meant for doing tapasya, Baba. So even in spiritual life, the mind is thinking of indulgence only. Meditation also one does like that only, no? Every spiritual sadhana will somewhere have some indulgence in the mind.